Hey there folks, this is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop, and the time has come for me to count down my picks for the top 10 movies of 2022. The last few years haven't really been the greatest for anyone, but 2022 in particular just was not my year. The commie cough finally got me, so I was smelling soap in all my food for a week. I totaled my grandpa's car, and I endured the single most disappointing experience I had ever had at the movies, to a degree that I didn't even feel like going back to the theater for a while. But when I did catch up on all the movies I missed, there were enough excellent pictures to make my end of the year list feel complete. So here are my top 10 best movies of 2022. Number 10. Starting off my list at number 10 is The Whale. I tell you, the thought of getting on a treadmill never sounded so good as when I watched this movie. Had some personal issues with the treatment of the missionary character, but at least it didn't feel like a total straw man. He was decently developed. And I don't think since Flight with Denzel Washington had I felt so much unrelenting sympathy from beginning to end for the lead character. Brendan Fraser is mesmerizing as this man trying to get free of the bloated mess he's made of himself and his life. And after everything Fraser has been through in the last several years, it's great to see him make such a triumphant return to the screen. Number 9. Speaking of winning comebacks for great actors, Nicolas Cage got his by playing himself in a title that well describes Brendan Fraser in The Whale now that I think about it. The unbearable weight of massive talent. On the surface, an over-the-top tongue-in-cheek romp that allows Nick Cage to channel his past glory days, but also has this bittersweet undertone with the knowledge of what a personal story this is for the man, mirroring the struggles he's apparently had trying to balance out Hollywood life and being a good husband and father. It's both the return of the Nick Cage we love and a celebration of the Nick Cage we loved, and just as he and Javi intended, it's got something for everyone. Number 8. It really sucked seeing the awesomely retro Orion Pictures logo getting a modern update, but when that's the worst thing about your movie, you're probably doing okay. At number 8 is Women Talking, a movie that absolutely lives up to its title, but it's some of the most riveting dialogue this year, spoken through fervent performances from every one of the cast members. It's, in a good way, agonizing listening to these women brainwashed by this isolated religious cult discussing how they reconcile their faith in God with the idea of defying their abusers, believing that doing so would damn them to hell. I just wanted to climb into the screen and shout, "Your salvation is not a prison. Be free and live in Christ's joy." It certainly isn't for everyone, and it is pretty drab looking. But if you can take a movie that's purely dialogue-driven, you'll be engrossed by almost every line. Number 7. Next is a movie that's anything but drab-looking, Avatar: The Way of Water. Over the course of a decade, I began to despair of ever again being transported back to the world of Pandora. But James Cameron finally got it done, and at long last, there I was in the IMAX theater with my 3D glasses on again, and it was just as breathtaking as I remember. Despite an excessively long middle act, this was a very worthy sequel, another technically and visually arresting wonder, and the greatest 3D experience I've had in a long, long time. And with the further developing mythos and some interesting character threads gotten started, I could not be happier to know that I don't have to wait nearly as long to see where the story goes next. Number 6. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of Robert Eggers. The Witch I really appreciate for its atmosphere, not a whole lot else though. And The Lighthouse I still don't entirely get, that one might take another viewing for me. But after a single viewing of The Northman, I knew right away I thought it was great. Eggers takes a pretty standard revenge tale and elevates it with unsettling, gritty atmosphere, gorgeous cinematography, great combat scenes, and sets and costumes detailed to a T. And the historical and the fantasy elements are treated as one and the same, putting us inside the minds of the Vikings, because what we know to be mythology was plain reality to them, a unique approach that adds up to a one-of-a-kind period piece. Made you think it was going to be number 1, didn't I? Number 5. Every year, there's usually one movie on my list that you probably won't see on anyone else's top 10. This year, that movie is Ambulance. What can I say? I just enjoyed the living crap out of this movie. It's a surprisingly unpredictable action flick overflowing with non-stop adrenaline and bolstered by solid characterizations and Jake Gyllenhaal's brilliant performance. As Michael Bay's global stakes and massive budget blockbusters are known for their heavy involvement with and reverence toward the US military, it's equally commendable to pay respect to the work of first responders as he takes the scale down to this local manhunt. Above all else, it's great to see Bay doing something he actually wants to do rather than getting bribed into doing another Transformers movie. Number 4. Coming in at number 4 is The Menu, a movie that I liked on my first viewing, and it just got better the more I thought about it. This is top-notch satire filled with colorful characters, making the point that the things that are treasured most by society tend to be the things that are most insignificant in life. And even though this movie is about food culture, you can apply it to just about any interest or hobby of yours and find some level of relatability. Whether you're a critic, a cynic, a casual fan, or a blind consumer, this movie will take a jab at you. And if you can handle that, The Menu is well worth ordering. Number 3. Out of all the sequels this year, the one that I probably had the least amount of expectations for turned out to be the number 1 blockbuster of the summer, Top Gun Maverick. Anyone would have thought this would be Paramount just drawing a random title they own from a jar to see what they can make into a franchise. Let's see what we got here. Top Gun. Alright, we're making a sequel to Top Gun. Au contraire, they really put everything into making this funny, compelling, moving, hugely entertaining, and ultimately, a sequel that improves on the 1986 original in every single aspect. Plus, any Hollywood movie that has the will to get the CCP throwing a temper tantrum will secure a spot on my top 10 of the year by default. Number 2. The title of my second favorite movie of the year goes to The Fablemans. Steven Spielberg further cements himself as the greatest filmmaker of our age by telling the story of his own life, his family, and his discoveries of what cinema is capable of. It's a tale of family secrets and pursuit of dreams that's equally funny and poignant, filled with raw performances, with even Judd Hirsch's minor role leaving a tremendous impact. I can't tell you how timely this movie's release was for me too. It helped rekindle my love of cinema, while giving me a reminder to never lose sight of what's really important in life. And for that, I'm grateful. Number 1. The Fablemans would have been number 1 if I hadn't spent as long as I did thinking about this particularly wonderful film. On my first viewing, I wasn't sure what to think of it, but there were several scenes and images from this film that just lingered with me for days. As I began putting together what they meant and I realized what the movie was truly about, I wanted to watch it again right away, and when I did, I came to adore it. My number 1 favorite movie of 2022 is After Sun. It may seem like just a girl and her dad on an uneventful holiday, but with superb directing, writing, and editing, it tells a beautifully sad and intimate story of a man wanting to give his daughter a good time while trying to hide his depression from her, and of an adolescent girl going through a phase in her life when her innocence begins slipping away, both of which are handled very tastefully and elegantly. The theme of reevaluating childhood memories upon realization of who someone in your life really was is one that resonates to the core, and it's depicted here through poetic imagery, and with Paul Mescal and Frankie Corio giving probably the 2 most nuanced performances this year. And it all goes out on one of the greatest transition shots ever put to film. Now, whenever I hear the song Under Pressure, I think of After Sun. And whenever I think of After Sun, I feel a twinge of aching inside. The movie is that powerful. It's an unforgettable masterpiece that earns the title of number 1 film of 2022. Well, this is actually the first time in a few years that I've done these end-of-the-year top 10 lists. In 2020, I didn't bother because there hadn't been enough releases, if you follow me. And in 2021, I just had a lot of other stuff going on at the time. But if you'd like to know, my number 1 pick in 2020 was Nomadland, which still would have had a great chance of being number 1 of a normal year. And in 2021, my number one pick was Last Night in Soho. So what were your favorite movies of 2022? Whatever they are, let me know in the comments, and be sure to stick around for my top 10 worst movies of 2022. That's a wrap, thank you for watching, like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture, I'm Alex Pop.